Hello everyone, it is Darkseeker here again. Welcome back for another video. Today I am playing Condensed Shudderwock Shaman featuring the Undatakah, and this deck is an armor-centric deck. You have the Moog Forge Fiend, and its death rattle is picked up by the Undatakah, whose battle cry is added to the Shudderwock pool, and you start gaining armor. The objective of the deck is simple: gain tons and tons and tons of armor, maybe even thousands of armor, and outlast your opponent into fatigue. Now your opponent will gain some armor too because of the armor vendor battle cry. Double armor vendor in this deck, those battle cries are also added to the Shudderwock pool, and thus after you start playing repeated Shudderwocks, your opponent benefits too with some armor gain. However, you gain more armor than your opponent, so eventually you will win the game in fatigue. However, the problem is it takes quite some time for you to get to that fatigue point, and so the games can go on forever. Now, I've only played this deck once against a questline pirate warrior with the tank up hero power. Will I be playing this deck again? Definitely not. 90 minutes is how long it took, and I enjoyed that 90 minutes, don't get me wrong, but it's not something I have the time to replicate over and over again. Now, we're going to look at highlights of the game. I won't put you through all 90 minutes, but let's look at some selected highlights here. Now, I had to play the Shudderwock first before I could play the Undatakah, and the reasoning for that is because I needed to replicate the Geppetto battle cry so I could actually draw the Undatakah. But on that turn I was also able to play the Undatakah because it costs 1. And the key thing there is, as you can see, the Moog Forge Fiend death rattle is now available to us. The Undatakah battle cry is now in the Shudderwock pool, and thus we take advantage of the Forge Fiend death rattle, and soon enough we'll start gaining tons of armor. Now right now our opponent has got 81 armor, we're at 31. It looks like that our opponent has the advantage in terms of armor. However, that is all going to change, because soon enough, as these Shudderwocks essentially die, kill themselves, remove themselves from the board, we will start stacking that armor. You saw it there for a brief instant. We gained a little bit of armor. We're catching up to our opponent. 67 armor now. And as we speed up the rest of this game, because I'm not going to make you sit through 90 minutes of animations, we are starting to stack armor now into the hundreds, okay, and soon it'll go into the thousands. This is all about who will blink first and concede, because it is going to take some time for fatigue to really set in. So will our opponent concede before us? I think that's what it comes down to. Now, one thing to note, Baleful Banker is in this deck, and its battle cry gets added to the Shudderwock pool. Why is that a good thing? It means that on some turns, depending on the order of things and how they go, you could get a Shudderwock or 2 or 3 or whatever shuffled into the deck. So on your following turn, you won't hit fatigue, ideally. You will have Shudderwocks in your deck, you can draw one of them on your new turn. At that point in the game, your opponent hopefully has no cards left in their deck, and they are fatiguing. So the Baleful Banker is protecting you from fatigue. However, when you have thousands and thousands of armor that you're gaining, does fatigue really matter? This is an important question. It probably doesn't matter. This is not the kind of deck that you want to play frequently. One game was enough for me. I won't be playing this again. At some point, you really want to stop playing the Shudderwocks, and you just want a board of Shudderwocks to remain, and then you can go face with them, okay? Because if you keep playing the Shudderwocks, the animations just take way too long, particularly when these Shudderwocks cost 1 mana and you can play them again and again, or repeatedly play a lot of them in one turn. And of course you have that hero power that can double the battle cries. So, credit to my opponent who stuck to this game for 90 minutes. The question is this deck a waste of time? The answer is yes. 90 minutes went by. I actually cooked my dinner during this time, ate my dinner, and did some DIY at home, trying to fix some things. I'm very bad at DIY, so it took me a long time. And I came back and the animations were still going. Is this deck BM? No, it's not. The opponent can make a choice to concede, knowing that you will win eventually in the fatigue war. But the thing is, you take a very long time to get to that point. Okay? So, can Blizzard speed up the battle cries, perhaps? As a general point, I would encourage them to, honestly. Maybe we can make the client a bit smarter. Could the client sense this is happening and really speed things up so a 90-minute game becomes a 30-minute game if the animations are just sped up? So, will I be playing this deck again? As I said earlier, no. Playing it once was enough for me. Did I have fun though? Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's how I view this deck. This deck was my vengeance on the meta. Okay? With the Seedlock meta, games were ending on turn 6. Control decks were not viable. And it was a very frustrating meta for me. I couldn't play the Shudderwock. It annoyed me. It frustrated me. And with Seedlock no longer being viable, it's banned. In Wild, at least. Consider this my outcry. My vengeance on that meta. My outpouring of relief. My stress relief. This is me making up for lost time. This is me making up for that meta. And after playing this 90-minute game, I felt a lot better. But yes, this was me making up for not being able to play the Shudderwock in that Seedlock meta. But as I say, one game was enough. I will not be playing this again. Would I recommend that all of you watching this play this deck? After all, my entire channel now is based on off-meta decks. That's what I showcase. I showcase off-meta decks, and I try to raise awareness for the wonderful deck authors that create these decks. But would I recommend to all of you that you should play this deck? The answer is no. At least not on the ladder. I think if you want to play it on casual, I think that's great. But on the ladder, you are going to be wasting your time and your opponent's time, potentially, until one of you concedes, basically. That's where it goes. So I would not recommend this for the ladder. If all of you watching this saw this deck and then decided to all go and play it, and if somehow it caught on, then our ladder would be infested with Armour Shudderwock decks, and I think that would be a frustrating experience. Normal Shudderwock games take long enough, and that's fine, but this takes it to a whole nother extreme. As I say, 90 minutes as we approach 16,000 armour. Now, another cool thing about this deck, in addition to the Baleful Banker shuffling Shudderwocks into the deck so you don't take fatigue, another cool thing is the Glacial Shard battle cry. And if you play enough of these Shudderwocks in a given turn, you will get enough of those Glacial Shard battle cries repeated, so you are freezing, hopefully, almost the entirety of your opponent's board. So they could become board locked, they can't play new stuff and they can't attack, Meanwhile, you hope to replicate a number of your Shudderwocks and keep them on the board by the end of the turn, so on the next turn you can go face with them. Meanwhile, your opponent can't attack with their own minions, can't play anything from their hand. And if you can go face with your Shudderwocks, ideally as 6/6s, not 1/1s, then you are adding damage to your opponent's face. That combines with the fatigue damage that they will start taking, and it hastens their demise. Meanwhile, you are probably not taking fatigue damage because you've been shuffling Shudderwocks into your deck through Baleful Banker Battlecry, and you're just sitting quite happily without damage being taken. Although with 16,000 armor, as I mentioned earlier, who cares if you take fatigue damage, honestly. But anyway, we finally got to a point, 16,312 armor, and our opponent conceded. Bravo to them for sticking it out for so long. Alright. Okay. 90 minutes later, I feel better. I feel happy having let out all of my frustration and stress from that seed lock meta. And yes, I will continue playing Shudderwock Shaman again, just not this version of Shudderwock Shaman, but you know, it's been a long time since I've played this armor version of Shudderwock Shaman. I think the last time I played it, it was when Dane had constructed a deck, and I played that. So maybe once a year I will play this just for a bit of fun and stress relief, and then not touch it for another year. Maybe that is the strategy that I employ going forward. But either way, you know, gaining 16,000 armor is pretty cool, right? And it's certainly not something that you see every day. Now, as we bring this video to a close, I hope you're enjoying the beat, the theme in the background. This is the theme for The Undatakah. A pretty cool theme that I think was very apt for this video, very relevant. Now, I hope you enjoyed the highlights in this video. I hope you enjoyed the awesome sight of all of that armor being gained, and I will see you all again very soon for more Wild Mode fun. But until next time, please stay safe, please look after yourselves, and as always, please be good to one another.